Hey, it's Cider. You know, sometimes you get something that should be good in theory, but is actually very mid in reality. And then there's those times where you reach an all-time low to where it's not even mid, it's just extremely disappointing. That's what Rune Factory 5 was for me. Let me start by telling you a little bit about my history with this series. When I was in the 6th grade, I had a friend named Danny that put me onto emulators. Once he told me about them, I was playing all types of Game Boy Advance games, Nintendo 64 games on my little LG Android at the time, and nothing could compete with the amount of joy I got from doing that. I also tried some GameCube games here and there, but they didn't run that smoothly on my fucking shitty phone that I had at the time. One day, Danny ends up telling me about this game that he plays on his 3DS called Rune Factory 4. He explains to me that it's this adventure RPG with romantic relationships. Now, I've always personally had a thing for RPGs, so when he told me about an RPG that's adventure based, where I can have a girlfriend, that's all he had to say to 11-year-old me. I was interested. I didn't get a 3DS until 7th grade, so I was kind of bummed out about the fact that I couldn't play it on my phone, but I did end up finding a Nintendo DS emulator, and from there I was able to get Rune Factory 3. Now, in opening Rune Factory 3, I clocked in at least 200 hours on that shit within the whole school year. That's all I did, and that's all I played was Rune Factory 3. I fucking loved that game. Years later, in 2020, during the lockdown and shit, I decided to get a Switch. And one of the first games I looked up on the Switch out of curiosity was Rune Factory 4. And sure enough, they had literally just released a port to the Switch when I bought mine. And honestly, despite some of the little, nitpicky things that I didn't enjoy about the game, overall, it was a pretty good game. It ran smooth, had a lot of content, and had pretty good music. That's a formula for a perfect game in my opinion. And when they announced Rune Factory 5, I was even more hyped because I assumed it can only get better from here. Boy, was I wrong, because Rune Factory 5 is the opposite of those three things I just listed. So get your plate of food ready, your popcorn, your licorice, your soda, your candy, whatever the fuck you eat while you watch YouTube videos like these, because we're gonna be here for a while. I'm unsure of this. How should I respond to this question? The story isn't anything crazy, but I'll cut them some slack because who plays Rune Factory for the story? Like, come on now. In a game like this that's more focused on relationships, the story is almost like a side quest. It's just one big side quest that you could do when you're bored, but the main thing that you're really worried about is developing relationships with the characters. As in every Rune Factory game, you spawn in the middle of the woods and forget everything about who you are and where you're from. You do something to save someone, and after fainting from exhaustion, you're brought back to their village. Now, you're a contributing member to their society. Somewhere along the line, it's revealed to you that you're this special dude called an Earthmate, so by now you probably see where this is going. From here, you join this scout regiment named Seed, and now you spend the rest of the game going on various missions and fulfilling random and sometimes rambunctious requests. And here's a depiction of what happens in the end without any significant spoilers.
Hey! No! Stop! Just calm down! Don't do it!
Alright, so out of love and respect for this series as a whole, I'm gonna start with the things I liked first. First off, seeing the game in 3D was pretty cool. There was actual in-game cutscenes and more animated cutscenes from what I can recall. Fast traveling is easier than ever because there's checkpoints you can travel to literally everywhere. And you can simply press the minus button and X to travel directly home. There's something called farm dragons now, so you can grow thousands of different crops at once, so running out of farm space is never an issue anymore. You can also purchase 2 animal barns per farm dragon. Each animal barn holds up to 4 monsters, so in reality, that's a lot of monsters. A lot of things have become very convenient. You can put away all of your lumber and stone with the tap of a button now. You can do the same with fodder and weeds, and you can place items directly in the shipping box, which I'm pretty sure is new. You can manually upgrade stores, and expanding backpack or storage space is no longer an issue with the amount of stone and lumber you can acquire very quickly from those farm dragons. You can also catch monsters like Pokemon now, and pretty much throw this whip at them that stuns them and mind controls them.
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps!
Honestly, I haven't seen much of a use for this because they only follow you around temporarily, which doesn't make sense to me because you could always just tame it and keep it forever. But it does have utility use because you can freeze enemies in place, but personally, I've never used this mechanic. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but both intros are fucking fire. If nothing else, they made an amazing cutscene intro when you first boot up the game. The music, the animation, the vibes, it's all there. I was literally cheesing from ear to ear when I turned that game on because for some reason, it just gets you hype as fuck. I personally think the majority of the budget for this game was invested in designing the intros. It's a perfect way to introduce the game to you. I wish they would have executed it a little better, but anyway, I digress. I'll talk more about that later. Let's stay on the positive. In terms of combat, there's new combinations with each weapon category. You can also bring a Seed Ranger with you on quests, and they'll give you a one-time recovery buff when your health is low. There's something called link attacks now, and you can do them with whoever's in your party. The attacks are based off the weapon that you give the person that's in your party. You can bring up to 3 people with you, which is cool to see because there are times where your group alone will be on demon timing, so you won't even have to do much. The roster of characters was satisfactory, and there's 12 dateable characters if you include the same sex options, but just be warned, you can only date up to 6 at a time. So no, you can't have a 12-pin harem deriving of a bunch of different men and women, you sick bastard. Since we're on the topic of characters, let's give a brief description of each one. Lucy is the tomboy, overly rash girl who finds a reason to compete over any given task. She's witty, quirky, and a little over the top personality-wise, but she has a sensitive side that she doesn't often show. She also has a weird obsession with fish. Martin is a stoic alpha male of the bunch. He's very stern and ambitious, and at times seems to only care about his weapons, and sometimes his little brother Cecile, but he's a strong and courageous man at the end of the day, so there's that. Priscilla is literally the perfect housewife. Out of all the other women, her femininity is very apparent. She cooks, cleans, and is naturally nurturing. She's kind of shy and reserved and not the most competent person in the world, but she tries. Objectively speaking, she's the best marriage candidate for the male protagonist. Murakumo is this wolf guy dude that's strong and somewhat obnoxiously loud, but truly caring deep down. He's very generous, selfless, and loyal to those he cares about, and that's all I remember about him because he's just a fucking furry, but a grown-ass man that's a furry. It's kinda, I'm not kink shaming, but what the fuck is this, guys? Fuka is this furry lolly abomination that Hakama thought would be a great addition to the game since this reaches a broader audience. She's adventurous, a bit wild, and rather lighthearted in her approach to life despite her noticeable animal instincts. She bathes once a week and likes digging in holes in her spare time. She also works as an apprentice to Priscilla's big-tittied older sister. Cecile is Marvin's younger brother that to me was just really annoying and useless. He's extremely naive and curious, but despite those things tries to further his dream career as a detective. The unfortunate thing is, he's not a realistic detective, he's more of a delusional one. He's also the most likely to fall into the category of femboy. Beatrice is the random princess who stumbles upon the town but ends up staying because she takes a liking to it. She's kind and affectionate but doesn't understand social cues at all. Although dreamy and cute, she's extremely dense and kind of lives in her own little world. Lucas is a guy that forgets he's a guy. I don't really know how to describe this dude to be honest because I barely interacted with him, but he's a part-time magician as well. Scarlet is your fellow Seed Ranger who carries herself as a rigid and uncompromising protector of the town. She's very logical and rational but also somewhat volatile and aggressive at times. Despite her abrasive personality, she has a soft spot deep down and will express it to you on occasion. It's less that she's afraid to express emotion and more that she doesn't really understand how to. This was the girl I married, by the way. Reinhard is the white knight in this game. He's an interesting guy with a terrible palate who spends most of his time munching on failed dishes and garbage, and simping for Beatrice is his full-time job. Because he's a knight, he's obviously formidable in combat and training, and this is probably every girl's dream guy to be honest. Ludmilla is a prostitute. Okay, well, maybe not exactly a prostitute, but she's a succubus. So technically it's the same thing because the exchange is still transactional. She's what some would probably refer to as an immoral woman with some masochistic tendencies. She's caring, very affectionate, blunt, and outspoken. She also has a very big crush on you since when she first meets you. And side note, she's kind of just given to you by one of the main antagonists in the game, so thanks, Oswald. And last but not least, Riker. Riker is a lazy bastard who spends most of his time finding clever ways to catch some Z's. He's also kind of dark, edgy, and mysterious, and super, apathetic and kind of nihilistic towards life. This is 100% my favorite character because of how dead he is inside, and that reminds me of myself. A dude who can complete the task at hand, but would rather spend 23 hours a day doing absolutely nothing. With the character events this time around, it was a lot more controllable. This time around, you can just check your map and see where the character event is at and go to it. In Rune Factory 4, it was all 100% RNG and random, so you kind of just had to wait and pray that you got the right event. It took way too long to make progress with characters because while you're trying to romance this beautiful French lady, Alfred here is given a crystal and suddenly thinks that he has the power of God and anime on his side. And a very personal pro for me was some of the voice actors. The male protagonist is voiced by one of my favorite voice actors of all time, Robbie Damon. And we also have Erica Lindbeck, or Linebeck, however you say her name, aka the voice of Futaba Sakura from Persona 5. She voices Lucy. There's a few other recognizable names as well, including Sungwon. I'm sure you guys have seen this guy before with a lot of the funny things and shit that he does. It was cool to see him in a series that I've enjoyed for some time now. But yeah, that's all the good things on the list, so let's get to the long list of negatives. things I strongly disliked. So let's start with the most obvious one, the performance issues. Fucking shit, bro. Every cutscene is a mess. When you think about it, none of them are even cutscenes, they're all slideshows. It completely ruins the immersion when I see shit like this taking place. The game in itself runs at about 15 through 30-ish frames when it decides to work properly, but most of the time, especially when a lot of things are happening at once on the screen, we're dipping down to like 5 to 10 frames at once, bro. This shit is unacceptable for a $60 game. The optimization is horrendous in this game, especially when you look at the older Rune Factory games. They ran smooth majority of the time. And that's not even to mention the rendering issues. Texture flickers and delayed loading screens plague this game. You'll spawn into the place you warped to, but nothing works for the first 10 seconds because the game hasn't finished rendering. There's also an excessive amount of latency and input delay. When I press a button, I have to plan 10 seconds ahead of time to make sure that I actually complete the action that I wanted to do. The combat is weird too. First of all, there's no new weapon categories. It's the same old recycled weapons in the last 4 Rune Factory games with some minor changes to the combinations, but that's about it. I would have loved to see something like a bow or crossbow added into this game. You fight archer enemies in the game, so it can definitely be done. Sometimes the combos will work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the camera is on point, and sometimes it's fucking you. I would recommend you use the new lock-on feature sparingly because at times it will be your downfall, especially when there's an excessive amount of enemies in the room. Link attacks are cool, but they're pretty glitchy and laggy at times, especially when fighting boss battles. And the game itself was relatively easy, even though I had the difficulty set to hard. The only time I struggled was the last part of the game, since you couldn't bring anyone with you and there was this enemy that could one-shot you from any health with this projectile. It was stupid, but at least it was somewhat challenging. The slowness and clunkiness is unbearable, especially because now this game is at an all-time low speed-wise. Some genius developer from Akama decided to increase the time you have in an in-game day. In comparison to Rune Factory 4, one in-game day is 48 minutes instead of 24 minutes. And this probably seems nice in theory, but now it takes forever for me to make any progression. There's a main story mission in which you have to wait until 10 p.m. to move forward. So you literally have to wait almost a whole hour to make some story progression. After watering my crops, acquiring items for my confidants, leveling up my character, and mining resources for money, I look at the time and it's only 11:30 a.m. Like, nigga, what the fuck else do you want me to do until 10 p.m? So even if the game happens to be running okay for once, you're still burdened with all this time. Until now, I didn't realize how much I appreciated Rune Factory 4 for its fast-paced nature. You can walk in a room and smoke everybody in about 6 seconds and be on your way. In this game, it takes about 8 years to clear a room, even if you're 100 levels above the enemy that you're attacking. The time would just kinda zoom by in Rune Factory 4, which kind of made you feel like, oh shit, I'm running out of time. But at the same time, it's like you learn to appreciate it and utilize it well. Or you're just left with an abundance of time with nothing to do, you kind of feel like shit the whole game, and it gets very fucking boring very fast. At certain points in the game, I just put my Switch down and let the game run while I read an ebook or something. Yes, this game was so boring to the point where at times I felt like I'd rather read than play the fucking game. The town and characters are hollow. They only really feel alive in their storyline cutscenes. In previous games, there was tons of unique dialogue and characters would appear in cutscenes giving you more unique dialogue, but in this game there's none of that. They repeat the same 5 sentences every time you talk to them, so it almost makes no sense to talk to them because I don't want to read the same fucking line about your rice, nigga. Because this game is so dialogue heavy, it should be the best part of the game, but I found myself skipping through about 75% of it at certain points. That's pretty sad. At first the voice lines when you pass by characters is cool and all, but after a week of hanging out with Lucy, I'm getting tired of her talking about taking on a new day.
Time to tackle another day.
Although I said the characters are satisfactory at best, there really wasn't anything that grabbed my attention. I just kinda had to settle for the best of the worst and I ended up with Scarlet, but in other games I personally felt as if there was some better options. And since we're on the topic of characters, why is it we can't date Elsha? You can date both Martin and Cecile who are siblings, but you can't date Elsha who is Priscilla's sister? Let me get this straight. We can fuck a elf, 2 furries, one being potentially underage, and a literal sex demon, but you can't fuck Elsha? Get the fuck out of here. It's a single player game, and typically I would end up dating every dateable character in the game so I can see all the different outcomes, but after I finished the 2 main story arcs, I didn't have the capacity to keep playing. I got married and left that shit alone. And another thing, why are confessions still an RNG thing? You literally have to go up to the person you want to date daily and tell them that you love them until they eventually probably maybe take you seriously. That's extremely stupid and desperate for a person that has to see you every day. Why couldn't they just make it so that after you complete a certain amount of character events, you can confess directly to the person This RNG system is just tedious and irritating, and chances of them accepting your confession only decreases the more people you date. I didn't even have a kid because that shit takes way too long. About 30 in-game days or so to be exact. You must be on crack if you think I spend that much time playing this shit just to see my virtual offspring. And although I like the fact that you can choose which side events you want to activate, I wish it was a little more manual. There are times where certain character events will appear and block off a whole section of the game unless you decide to activate the event, and some of them be long as fuck, so I would try to avoid them. But the consequence to doing that is I couldn't buy anything from certain stores. All I wanted was some turnip seeds, but no, Reinhardt's stupid ass has to wait and occupy this territory. I don't swing that way, bro. Move. Unless your name is Riker. The music was pretty mid. In comparison to Rune Factory 4 and 3, I really did not enjoy Rune Factory 5's music. The save music only plays in the title screen, and there's no save jingle. Are you fucking kidding me? The save jingle is what makes Rune Factory, and now it's gone, so this game is just fucking Animal Crossing now. The music variety is non-existent. The same song plays throughout the whole town, including your farm dragons, and there's only one shop song this time around. Let's compare Rune Factory 5's music to the music in some of the other games. I know this is supposed to be the negative section, but just to be clear, no song from any other Rune Factory game can touch this track right here. I don't know about y'all, but Sharon's and Selphia had some fucking bangers in comparison to Rigbarth. And also, Rigbarth? Ew, nigga. That shit sounds like a prehistoric AutoZone, bruh. The fuck is a Rigbarth? And also as a side, somewhat personal complaint, the voice acting. The voice actors were all good, but they picked the most random lines to fully voice act. And the main character has close to no voice lines in comparison to other characters aside from Rajaya! And it sucks too because Robbie Daymond is an incredible voice actor. He voices characters like Akechi in Persona 5. And this game was stuck with a very tame and uninspired performance from him when we could have gotten something like this.
I love delicious pancakes.
I wonder if the snow will stick. Persona! This is amazing. The rain never ends. Move! Wake up! Pancakes. That is a shame. It is time we start our strategy meeting. Our meeting will end here. Everyone, I've learned a new ability. Oh no, I'm so scared. Who's next in line to die? Die, 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 die! I don't want to hear that word again for a long, long time. What are you doing? God, I live for this!
Big Chungus. Do or die. Forever. Big Chungus. I want it on my gravestone.
And by the way, I'm not at all blaming Robbie for how this shit turned out. I blame Hakama for giving him nothing to work with. Micah, Lest, and Ares are all the same exact person. In a series like Persona, that's not really the case with their main protagonist. If it wasn't obvious before, the Persona series is my favorite video game series. And side note, I find it really ironic that Robbie ends up playing the same role that Xander did while playing Joker in Persona 5. The difference is, Joker was cool as fuck in original. Ares is just a copy and paste character from the past. Fucking shit. I'm sure I probably have a few more nitpicky things that I genuinely dislike from this game but can't think of at the moment. Little things like how you can't put furniture against the wall, like you can only put it a few inches away from the wall, which is really dumb. There's just this big gap of space, and this big gap of space pisses me off, but I'ma just leave it. I think I touched on the main things anyway. With all that being said, if it wasn't already obvious, no, I wouldn't recommend this unfinished garbage for $60. This game has so many new things that should have been great in theory, but it just didn't deliver on any of it. And it pains me to say this too, because I genuinely enjoy the series and have enjoyed it for years now. But this game just wasn't meant to make that leap into 3D, especially because the developers probably didn't even bother to test this technical mess after they made it. In trying to be more progressive and I guess more modern, it lost a lot of what made Rune Factory, Rune Factory. Mid characters, mid music with limited variety, cringy dialogue, and this fucking thing. It just ain't it, chief. How do you see something like this and say, yeah, that looks pretty finished actually? I'm very disappointed in what this game turned out to be, and honestly, I'd recommend you don't even waste your time with it if you're new to the series. Buy Rune Factory 4 instead. At least you'd be getting your money's worth, and that game is only like $40 at this current moment. If you're a reoccurring fan that really wants to play it, I recommend waiting for a price drop because honestly, you wouldn't be missing out on much. It's a single player game after all. It'll always be there. And yeah, that's my review on Rune Factory 5. If you disagree with me or agree with me, let me know in the comments below. This video was hard to make, not only because it was long, but because it really felt bad to trash my fucking childhood. But I had to keep it a buck with you because honestly, I wasn't satisfied with my purchase, and I don't want people making the same mistake that I did. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, and deuces.